Hi, it's Guys UK here again. Not a particularly exciting video, but it's the only thing I've got to show you just at the moment, so I thought I'd share it while I'm here. I'm going to fit a CR2032 battery cell here, you know, and so I can just put CR2032 cells into power the backup RAM when it's switched off. I'll be following the tutorial actually from the Jamination X. It's just a photo, literally just shows you which components to remove from this particular board. From what I understand, some of the other neo-geo MVS boards, the ones that don't use like a rechargeable button, you know, CR2032 cells on there like this one would have had originally, those ones, you know, that just got like a standard NiCad or whatever it is, use a 470 ohm resistor to feed the, you know, the charge to that battery. So I think on some models, let's say, you can just remove the 470 ohm resistor, but on the ones that use a button cell that's soldered on there, is slightly different. I think there's a diode and a transistor or something that need removing, so we'll do that in a minute. While I'm here, I'm also going to update the Unibios to 3.3, I think it is. I think I'm on 3.1, so, you know, because I last updated this about, well, I didn't really update it. I bought the original Unibios there from Rizzula about 3 years ago or so, I think. Could be 4 years, I've lost track of time. And the other thing I'm going to do is swap out the power switch as well, because that power switch is with constant use, and it was a bit of a, I think that was a worn one. I did have some new ones, I couldn't find them at the time, but I found them since, so I'm going to swap out the power switch as well. So I think previously a cap was perhaps being replaced on that side there. You can see a couple of solder blobs. I need to clean that up actually. I must have missed that when I last cleaned up this board. But yeah, I can clean the flux off around there. So we're going to remove this here, and I think apparently it's a diode. It's got 3 connections on it. I've not seen one like that before, but it's marked D something or other on the silk screen. There isn't one on this board, but the photo, that particular photo's got the silk screen markings on it. It's marked D something or other. So we're going to remove that one. We're going to remove that one, that's a diode as well. We're going to remove this resistor, so it's just those 3 components there, and then put the battery in. So I can't remember, yeah, the negative on this, as you can see, can you see it's marked, sorry, I'm not focusing very well, it's marked positive there on the top part, so that means that the bottom connection there is the negative, and the negative needs to go on this side. This is ground, I've just tested that. So I'll just make sure the pin positions are right. Yeah, they are. That's no issues there. So obviously get it on the other side of the board there and solder it on. So you can see the work that's been previously done to this board. It's had a new Z80, had a new Neo C1, new SRAMs, HC32 there. This battery, this cap is going to need relocating. So I'm going to desolder that right hand pin. And then just move it to the side a little bit and push it back through and resolder it, so that the caps, instead of being straight up like that, it's like that a little bit, just to free up the space here. There was a bit of glue, I need to get rid of the remainder of the hot glue there, in order that I can just fit the button cell in there, and then I'll do the mods on the underside. I'll take out my Unibios while I'm here as well, and blank that and get that programming whilst I'm doing the other stuff. So as you can see, I took the Unibios out there, removed the label. I'm just cleaning off the residue here with some IPA. And this is the best way of doing it, stick it in a piece of foam while you do it, just because it's really hard to get some of this stuff off. And you will bend the pins if you don't stick it in a piece of anti-static foam or something. Yeah, these original stickers really do stick really well, it leaves a lot of residue. So once I've cleaned up there, I just need to inspect that closely, just to make sure it's there's no residue on the window, and then stick it in the EEPROM eraser. It's just a, you know, ultraviolet light. That's how it works. Give it about 15 minutes, let it cool down for a few minutes, and then I'll stick it in the Willems programmer there. Set the programmer for a 27C1024, I think it is, and program the 3.3 run. So an example of an affordable EEPROM eraser here. They're only about £10, these from eBay. I mean, they are junk, they really are. All it is, as you can see, is an ultraviolet light with a mechanical timer and a main switch. There's probably no fuse protection or anything. You know, obviously it's protected by the fuse and the plug. That's a recommendation, that's just to check the size of the fuse in your plug. I've set it a bit too high there. I've set it at 30 minutes. It goes a bit quicker, actually, this. That'll probably end up being about 20 minutes, just because the time's not very accurate on this one. But it probably only needs about 15-ish, roughly. That should be sufficient. So there you go, I've relocated that cap, and the battery holder now just fits nicely there. So I've soldered the battery holder on there. In order to get these components off, the easiest way to do it is just get some, put some fresh solder on the edges of the component first, and then just do a bit of this where you heat both, you move it around, and as long as you've got enough solder there, you'll get to the point where that component will come off the board. Sometimes the components have like a little bit of glue or something underneath them, so they can sometimes be a little bit awkward, as this one is here, to get off. There you go. So as you can see there, if you just heat both points at the same time, you should be able to get it off. There we go. So those two components there, just heated both pins at the same time and slid it to the side. This has got 3 pins, so I've added some solder and I'm just using my solder braid here, and I'm going to try and remove as much solder as I can that way, to see if I can get it off that way, because it's got 3 pins. Yeah, not the easiest thing to remove. The best thing to do something like that with is to use with that is like hot air. Hot air is kind of essential really when you've got pins on different sides of it like that. But yeah, hopefully we can get most, if not all, of the solder off using the desolder braid here. Let's try that side. Just clean up these pads as well. It's not too bad. So as you can see, not too bad there, that's pretty clean, but we did lose a pad here, can you see? It looks a bit dark, the PCB there. Yeah, the pad's just come off, but the pad doesn't go anywhere. That's one of the things you can get sometimes when you're trying to remove components like that. If you've got a pad that has no purpose, there's no rail connected to it and stuff, there's not very much supporting them on the board, so just with a little bit too much heat they can come off really easy, and that's an example. Like I say, it's not going anywhere, there's no wires connecting to it, no traces connecting to it, it's just a pad adhered to the PCB there, so that they do come off pretty easy. But I'm never going to put the components back on there, and if I did, it wouldn't matter that that's missing. You could just solder the component across the 2 connections there and it would just work. So now I've done that part, I need to program the Unibios. It's nearly finished erasing, I think, and swap out my power switch, I think. So I've got the EEPROM in the Willems program here. You can see you need this, if you use the same program as me, you need this adapter board here, which supports, as you can see up here, you know, a 27C 4096, a 1024, 2048, and then the other socket is used for some of the ROMs actually on MVS cards, like 27C 400, 800, 160, or 27C 322. So once you've got the board on there, you select the EEPROM in the software, and then it'll show you these dip switch settings here. I've shown this before, but that's how you need to configure it. And I think there's a programming voltage, I can't quite remember now. There is a jumper somewhere for that, I can't remember. Yeah, there. That's the programming voltage, sorry, off camera as usual. So I think it does like 3.3 or 5, which corresponds with the dip switches. Can you see them, that blue bank of dip switches there? So once you've set all that, everything's, you know, joined up correctly, you have this connector board here to provide the additional upper address lines and stuff. There must be some multiplexing going on here on this board in order to do that. And you know, it's the red line here to the red line here. And then we'll just do a blank check, so I'll just zoom you in a little bit. Action blank check, and that's just going to go scan through, read the ROM, just to make sure that every address there, you know, every byte, every address is blank. Well, it's not a byte actually, it's a word. It's a 16-bit ROM, this, I think. So we'll just do a blank check now. That's just going to go through every address and check the contents to make sure it is actually blank. Let's try that again. What if the device is not empty? It was a minute ago. As you can see, just a blank check there, and yeah, device is empty. So I'll select the ROM now and then just click program. So what we do is hit load and then just find the ROM. You can see I've masked out the serial numbers. I've got two Unibios updates here. That's the one I want. And if we select action program, yeah, so we just need to wait for that to complete. It's going to take a minute or so, and then I'll verify it, and we're all done. And finally, I've stuck a label on there. Unfortunately, my printer doesn't do dots. It's one of these damn things, a Dymo, whatever it is. So I'll perhaps put one of these labels in the post to Matt. You know, you saw I recently fixed his AES from a friend of mine. So he can just whip the lid off his and just stick a label on there rather than that dodgy bit of tape with a bit of pen written on it, as I sent last time. And incidentally, something else I thought that was worth mentioning, and I'm not sure if this just relates to my EEPROM eraser perhaps being inefficient, you know, it's not getting the light at all the right angles. But what happened with this when I first blank checked it, it blank checked fine 2 or 3 times, I left it for 5-10 minutes, came back, blank checked it again, and it wasn't blank. And it was hitting it straight away, like on the first bite it was checking. So I erased it again for another 5-10 minutes, put it back in, blank checked it, it was fine, left it another 10 minutes, blank checked it, it was fine. So, you know, me being a bit paranoid, I have this every time I do one of these now. It's an absolute pain, and I can't work out if it's the program. I don't think it's the program, I do think it's actually detecting it's not blank. So those cheap UV erasers, you know, you sometimes have to be resilient, but, you know, keep at it. Just do it for 10-20 minutes and then blank check it, leave it for 10 minutes, blank check it, just be double sure it's still blank. You do get like a change just over as it cools down. You know, it's a weird. You know, if you know more about why that is, please explain in the comments below. But there's no UV, not really any UV light, I would say, on a day like that today here in the UK. It's pretty cloudy and overcast, so I can't imagine that the 10 minutes it's been in here, the UV has affected it anyway. In fact, the UV should erase it, so it's the opposite of what we're seeing there anyway. But yeah, I've just left that for another 5 or 10 minutes here, and I'm just going to blank check it, not blank check it, compare it again, just to make sure that it's 100%. But yeah, I'll show you. I'll put the verify here, and we'll just wait for that to complete. Yeah, so I'm convinced that's okay, so I can reassemble it all and test it. So I've just set the time and date with dip switch 1 up, so I'll switch dip switch 1 off. That should reboot, and hopefully it should all be good. Yeah, you can see Unibios 3.3. I've set it in console, USA. This is ironclad. I think this should work okay. Might be turned down a bit, seems pretty loud. Yeah, that's working fine. So obviously it's going to take some time to test whether the battery's working and stuff. I didn't show you the power switch because there's just nothing to it. It's just, you know, desolder 2 connections, put the new one in. But yeah, hopefully you found that interesting. The other thing I'll show you with Unibios, if you're not aware, you know, obviously if you hold select and start down, that's where you get your cheat menu and stuff, and you can soft reboot the system from there. If you hold down ABC when it boots on a Unibios, you go into the settings page here where you can change the region and the console. So, you know, I can do any combination of regions and modes there between MVS and AES, etc. Your general BIOS settings. When you've changed the battery, or, you know, if you're testing the system without using the system without a battery, that is the default to disable the boot up hardware test. So the first thing I always do every single time is when I boot this up from cold is to change that. I mean, hopefully that should be saved now, I think, in the backup RAM, so hopefully I won't need to keep doing that. But that's something worth mentioning, that you should always have that on, because if you get strange behaviour, you might have a fault without knowing it. And obviously you've got the jukebox player in here. You can check game cards, CRCs, and if you make a cable up, you can connect you know, your MVS to the PC. It's like a serial link. But anyway, hopefully you found that interesting. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.